Our region's business is sponsored by PNC for the achiever in you. Our region's business. Innovation, transformation, momentum. Improving our communities and driving technologies that will shape our region for generations. The collaboration that brings vitality, prosperity, and life to living. Stay with us for the coming half hour as we examine in depth our region's business. Now, here's your host, Bill Flanagan.
Today on Our Region's Business, a local company turns heads at the Consumer Electronics Show to find out why everybody's talking about body media. Plus, the car wash that comes to you and cleans your vehicle without water. But first, a good reason to keep your car well maintained. You just may well need it. The Port Authority of Allegheny County has unveiled plans to slash service by 35% in September if Pennsylvania fails to develop a strategy to fund transportation and transit across the Commonwealth. The prospective cuts could cut off employers from workers, workers from jobs, and put even more cars on an already deteriorating highway infrastructure in the Commonwealth. Jeff Broadhurst is president and CEO of Eaton Park Hospitality Group. Ken Zapinski is senior vice president of energy and infrastructure at the Allegheny Conference on Community Development, which does co-produce this program. And welcome. Good to see both of you.
Thanks, Bill.
You too, Bill.
Draconian cuts, they're all the headlines. We're not going to get into a lot of detail about which routes and which communities and whatever. It is significant, but Jeff, you've been looking from the perspective of Eaton Park. Do you have a sense yet of what the kind of cuts they're talking about would really mean?
We've done some informal studies and just some research with our team members, and it's going to affect about 22 of our restaurants, up to possibly 230 of our team members, which is really significant. More importantly, it's over the weekends where just about 50% of our business is between Friday night and Sunday. So most of our hours are on the weekends, and therefore some of these very, very loyal and committed team members will have a hard time getting to work. Up to 230 folks will be affected.
Wow. So in a lot of suburban locations, people think I'm still going to get in the car and drive and I'm going to go to Eaton Park. But if there's nobody there to work the restaurant, you've got issues in servicing your customers, whether or not they're directly affected by this, right?
Absolutely. We'd have a hard time. We'd have to hire new folks. And ultimately, I worry about the people that have been there so long and have been so committed. Will they be able to find another job somewhere else? Many of them take 2 buses to get to us. So they may have a hard time finding something else. If we do have to replace them, there's a big training cost. Guest satisfaction won't be where it is. Folks that come in obviously are very loyal to some of their servers, and they won't be there any longer. So we're looking very hard at it. We hope it doesn't come, but at the same time, we got to take precautions and be prepared should it come. So.
Well, one of the clear messages, I know the conference and the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership were reaching out to their members this past week. What? A big message right now is start doing what Eaton Park's doing?
Absolutely. Jeff and the Eaton Park team are to be complimented because they're doing exactly what needs to be done, which is businesses need to take a look and understand what level of risk they face if these cuts go into effect. Nobody wants to see the Port Authority do this, but it's really out of the Port Authority's control. It's an issue that has to be dealt with at the state level. So I think the business community has to grapple with this on parallel paths. On one path, work and talk to our lawmakers in Harrisburg, help them understand the impact that sufficient transportation funding has to benefit and grow the Commonwealth economy. And then the other path is understand how much we're at risk, and then take the steps necessary within our own companies in order to prepare for that contingency should it take place.
Well, the Port Authority, just cut back like 15%. That was about a year ago or so, right?
15% in March of 2011, and that was as a result of, this is a continuation of the same story, which was in 2007, the state legislature tried to come up with a plan to fund state transportation systems. A big part of that relied on the tolling of Interstate 80 across the northern tier of the state. The federal government ultimately rejected that in early 2010. We're here now almost 2 years later with that huge gap in the investment in state transportation, and there has not been a solution yet that's been, passed by the legislature and signed by the governor to solve that problem.
But man, you start cutting 15% this year, 35% the next year. It won't be very long before there's not much of a transit system left.
That's it. We call it the death spiral. You'll start seeing, fewer neighborhoods served. About the figures that the Port Authority has come up with is about 100 communities will lose their transit service if these cuts take place in September. So that's a combination of, say, city neighborhoods and municipalities across the region. It's incomprehensible, particularly at a time, Jeff, you were talking about transit as a lifestyle issue and people wanting, particularly young people in the community wanting to use it more proactively.
We've got some team members actually at our new Porch restaurant, two of our really important managers.
That's the one in Shenley Plaza in Oakland, which I haven't been there yet, but it looks fabulous.
And two of our managers, great young professionals, do not have transportation. They use Port Authority. They live in the city. And you think about some of these regions, cities like ours, to not have, as you know, we're trying to get more and more people to move into the city. To not have public transportation on some of the weekends is devastating. And it's important to keep it alive for sure.
I know when the conference surveyed young people last year, Ken, transit turned out to be a surprisingly high priority for them,
It was far and away the #1 priority for the emerging leaders of tomorrow, that we had convened more than 200 of them, and by probably a 3-to-1 margin, public transit. And it was not just because of so people who don't have cars have a way to get to work. It was, we want to live in the city. We're used to urban environments that have these sorts of amenities. This is the sort of place that we want to live. And to have one of the proposals that the Port Authority's floated is, cutting transit service to the airport. And if you just want to think for a second how absolutely ludicrous it would be to have a major international airport that doesn't have any sort of public transit service going there, is just, it's mind-blowing.
But I know a lot of business folks may be thinking, it is impossible to believe, so this isn't going to happen, so I'm going to put my head in the sand and ignore it and just wait for it to work itself out. It's a guy running a significantly sized business in our region. What would you say to folks who are kind of viewing it that way?
Well, first of all, I know we sure won't take it that way. That's something that we've already started to look into. It's just too much at risk for someone running an organization to put your head in the sand. And we've got to obviously talk to our lawmakers, which we will. We're glad it's going to be September, not the middle of the summer, because our business winds down a little bit. But it's already hard enough to get good folks, and in some cases, and once we get them, we have some of the most loyal team members. We want to keep them. So it'd be really unfortunate that if they can no longer work for us for something out of our control, is tough to swallow. So we got to make sure that we can continue to push and find a way for them to get to work.
All right. Well, a lot has to happen over the next 6 months. Hopefully some solution can be found, but if not, prepare.
That's right.
And put a plan in place.
Sure.
Jeff Broadhurst from Eaton Park, Ken Zapinski from the Allegheny Conference. Thank you both so much.
Thank you,
Bill.
Appreciate it.
And next up, the car wash that comes to you. Stay with us.